Hello, BookTube. We'll continue on here with some more Bernard Cornwell. In this case, it's the Richard Sharp novels. I'm missing two, which until I did this, I did not realize. I'm missing Sharp's Enemy and Sharp's Tiger. Chronologically, Sharp's Tiger is the first, even though it was written later. But I'll show you what I do have. I'm a little weird about the Sharp books. They're among my favorite. So you'll notice that a couple times I have more than one copy for the cover, for the publisher, whatever. I don't do that very often, but in this case, it's an indulgence. So we'll start off with Sharp's Triumph. This is a Book Club Associates from London volume. And it's Richard Sharp and the Battle of Assaye, September 1803. India, 1803. It's 4 years since Richard Sharp earned his sergeant's stripes at the siege of Seringapatam, and 4 years in which Sharp seems to have discovered the easiest billet in the British Army. But that comfort is rudely shattered when he witnesses a murderous act of treachery by an English officer who has defected from the East India Company to join the mercenary army of the Maratha Confederation, commanded by flamboyant Hanoverian Anthony Pullman. Sharp is ordered to join the hunt for the renegade Englishman, a hunt that will take him deep into the enemy's territory, where he will face temptations more subtle than he has ever dreamed of. And behind him, relentlessly stalking him, comes his worst enemy, the baleful, twitching Sergeant Obadiah Hikeswell, who is determined to break Sharp once and for all. So Hikeswell, the sergeant they're talking about, if you ever watch the BBC Sharp videos, you learn to hate that guy. He's wonderful. You got to have a good bad guy. So yeah, he's great. So Sharp's Triumph, and then I have it in this HarperCollins hardback. And then I also have it in this HarperCollins imprint Perennial paperback. I know, a little weird, but it is what it is. And next in order comes Sharp's Fortress. Hopefully you can see this. India, 1803. So we're in the same area and time. This is Richard Sharp at the siege of Gallagher, Jawilghur. Hopefully I'm at least close on that. December 1803. It's Richard Sharp is now an officer in General Wellesley's army, faces a battle of a different kind, this time among his own ranks. Uncomfortable with his newfound authority and unwilling colleagues, Sharp is relegated to tedium of baggage duty. But when he catches wind of a treasonous scheme devised by none other than his oldest and worst enemy, Sergeant Obadiah Hikeswell, Sharp has little choice but to take up arms, seek revenge, and regain his stolen treasure, the jewels of Tipu Sultan. Joining Wellesley's army as it prepares to lay siege to this fortress high above the Deccan plain, Sharp will risk his honor, reputation, and fortune on a battle that will test him as never before. And then, here we have Sharp's Trafalgar. And this is Spain, 1805. Harper Perennial, let's see, what's the date on this? 2002. Richard Sharp in the Battle of Trafalgar, October 21st, 1805. The year is 1805, and the Calliope, with Richard Sharp aboard, is captured by a formidable French warship, the Revenant, which has been terrorizing British nautical traffic in the Indian Ocean. The French warship races toward the safety of its own fleet, carrying a stolen treaty that could provoke India into a new war against the British, and rendered for naught all that Sharp has bravely fought for up until now. But help comes from an unexpected quarter. An old friend, a captain in the Royal Navy, is on the trail of the Revenant, and Sharp comes aboard a 74-gun man-of-war called the Puchel in hot pursuit. What results is a breathtaking retelling of one of the most ferocious and one-sided sea battles in European history, in which Admiral Lord Nelson and Sharp vanquished the combined naval might of France and Spain at Trafalgar. Then we got Sharp's Prey. It's a little bit of a glare there. Denmark, 1807. This one has one bookmark in it. Richard Sharp and the Expedition to Copenhagen in 1807. Harper Perennial, 2002. Nice little map there. Most of these do, which are helpful when you're doing historical fiction. The year is 1807, and Richard Sharp is back in England, where his career seems to have come to a dead end. Despite his heroics in Britain's recent victory in Trafalgar, loveless, destitute, and relegated to the menial task of a quartermaster, Sharp roams the streets of London, pondering a bleak future away from the army. Then, out of the blue, an old friend invites him on to take a secret mission, the delivery of a bribe to the Danish capital, Copenhagen. All right, and then we move on to Sharp's rifles. Now we got some Penguin editions here. A bunch of these. So Richard Sharp and the French invasion of Galicia, January 1809. Penguin Books. And this was 1988 copyright. I don't know if these have maps or not. I don't remember them having maps. No, it doesn't look like it. It's 1809. Powerful French juggernaut is sweeping across Spain. Lieutenant Richard Sharp is newly in command of the demoralized, distrustful men of the 95th Rifles. He must lead them to safety, and the only means of escape is a treacherous trek through the enemy-infested mountains of Spain. Once Sharp's with the rifles, the stories really pick up. I like them. So now he's with the rifles. Sharp's Havoc, Portugal, 1809. Let's see. This was published in 2003. In 1809, a few years after Lieutenant Richard Sharp's heroic exploits on the battlefield of India and at Trafalgar, and Sharp finds himself fighting the savage armies of Napoleon Bonaparte as they tried to bring the whole of the Iberian Peninsula under their control. Napoleon is advancing fast in northern Portugal, and no one knows whether the small contingent of British troops stationed in Lisbon will stay and fight or sail back to England. Then you have Sharp's Eagle. Penguin again. Richard Sharp in the Talavera campaign, July 1809. And this was from 1981. Captain Richard Sharp, bold, professional, and ruthless, prepares to lead his men against the armies of Napoleon at Talavera in what will be the bloodiest battle of the war. Sharp has earned his captaincy, but there are others, such as the foppish Lieutenant Gibbons and his uncle, Colonel Henry Summerson, who have bought their commissions despite their incompetence. After their cowardly loss of the regiment's colors, their resentment toward the upstart Sharp turns to treachery, and Sharp must fight to redeem the honor of his regiment. And you have Sharp's Gold, another penguin. I actually sort of like these penguin covers, to be honest with you. So we have Richard Sharp and the Destruction of Almeida, August 1810. This was a Penguin book from, it's originally published 1987. The Penguin version's from 94. A year after the victory at Talavera, Wellington's army, outnumbered and out of money, is on the verge of collapse. Its only hope lies in a cache of gold hidden in the Portuguese mountain, and the only man capable of stealing it is Captain Richard Sharp. He embarks on a secret mission that pits him against the French army, El Cataloco, and the fanatic Spanish guerrilla leader, and El Cotacoco's lover, the beautiful but deadly Teresa. A series of battles lead him through Portugal to the fortress town of Almeida, where he is trapped, but Sharp is determined to succeed, even if it means turning against his own side. Then we have Sharp's Escape. Again, a lot of glare today. There's the author. Cornwell. Richard Sharp in the Busoko campaign, 1810. HarperCollins, 2004. there's a map that goes with it. Very nice. It's 1810 and Napoleon's determination to conquer Portugal and put the British Army back to sea. He sends his largest army yet across the Spanish frontier. But between the Portuguese border and Napoleon's seemingly certain victory are two obstacles: a wasted land stripped of food by Wellington's order, and Captain Richard Sharp. Then you have Sharp's Battle. Quite nice cover on that one. And this is HarperCollins, 1995. And this is sort of interesting because the TV series starred Sean Bean early in his career, and he was fantastic in it. So the author this time dedicated it to Sean Bean, which I think is sort of nice. Sharp's Battle takes Richard Sharp and his company back to the spring of 1811 to one of their most bitter battles of the Peninsular War, a battle on which all British hopes of victory in Spain will depend. Sharp is given responsibility to lead an Irish battalion of the King of Spain's Household Guard, ceremonial troops untrained and unequipped for battle. While quartered in the crumbling fort of San Isidro, they are attacked by murderous Brigadier General Guy Loup's elite French brigade. Sharp has witnessed General Loup's despicable war crimes before. To put an end to them and to settle another, more personal score, Sharp must lead his company into the battle-gutted streets of Fuentes de Honoro, where thousands of French troops have amassed in a battle to the death. Now we have Sharp's company. Getting back to these beautiful penguin covers, which I really, really like. The Siege of Badajoz. I hope I'm saying that. Badajoz. Looming on the border of Portugal and Spain is the fortress of Badajoz. To lead an assault on its 6 sheer walls and battlements is suicide, yet Richard Sharp must lead one. Inside the walls are his wife and daughter, and only he can save them. Outside is a misshapen, vengeance-crazed Sergeant Obadiah Hakeswell, a man determined to kill Sharp. Sharp knows that in the heat of the battle, only the cold steel of his battered sword and the ruthless bloodlust of a soldier at war will protect him from the danger on both sides. Hakeswell. I hate that guy. I love to hate that guy. And then we have Sharp's Sword. Again, one of these penguins. Getting a really nice cover. Richard Sharp in the Salamanca campaign, June and July 1812. And this is one of those ones where I'm going to have 2 copies. There's a nice map there. Sunday, June 14th, and Tuesday, June 23rd, 1812 is part 1. I sort of like how they did that. Colonel LaRue is killing Britain's most valuable spies, and it's up to Richard Sharp to stop him. Thrust into the unfamiliar world of political and military intrigue, Sharp must tangle with La Marquesa, a beguiling, extraordinarily beautiful woman whose embrace is as calculating as it is passionate. As she leads him through a maze of secrecy, cunning, and deception, Sharp relentlessly pursues LaRue, determined to exact his revenge with the cold steel of his sword. Here's another copy of it. Nice copy. This is the Viking Press, New York, and it was 1983. Then we go to Sharp's Honor. Again, one of these penguin covers. Richard Sharp at the Vittoria Campaign, February to June 1813. There's a map of the battle. An unfinished duel, a midnight murder, and the treachery of a beautiful prostitute lead to the imprisonment of Sharp. Condemned to die as an assassin, he is a pawn in a plot conceived by his arch-enemy, Pierre Ducos. Caught in a web of political intrigue for which his military experience has left him fatally unprepared, Sharp becomes a fugitive, a man hunted by both ally and enemy alike. Then we have Sharp's Regiment, another penguin cover. Get a good look at that without the glare. Richard Sharp and the Invasion of France, June to November 1813. And that was, get a date on that. That was first published in 1986. Sharp returns to England and discovers an illegal recruiting ring that sells soldiers like cattle to other divisions. The ringleaders know Sharp is on their trail, and they try to kill him at every turn. But Sharp is fighting for his command, and he moves from the dark slums of London to the highest courts of political power. Sharp will risk charges of treason and death for a final chance at revenge. And again, another Penguin. Sharp's Siege. This one was originally published 1987. Map. So it's Richard Sharp in the Winter Campaign, 1814. Sharp's mission seemed simple: capture a small unguarded French coastal fort, cripple Napoleon's supply lines, and retreat across the sea. But behind the lines, Sharp's old enemy, Pierre Ducos, awaits Sharp's arrival with a battalion of French soldiers and a vicious commanding general who keeps the scalp of his dead enemies as trophies. We have Sharp's Revenge with the... this is a Penguin, but it's not the nice covers. I've got a couple of these. I'm not really big on the covers, but I've got the titles anyway. And this is Richard Sharp in the Peace of 1814. And this was originally published in 89. So it's 1814. Defeat of Napoleon seems imminent if the well-protected city of Toulouse can be conquered. For Richard Sharp, the battle turns out to be one of the bloodiest of the Peninsular Wars. He must draw on his last reserves of strength to lead his troops to victory. But before Sharp can lay down his sword, he must fight a different sort of battle. Accused of stealing Napoleon's personal treasure, Sharp escapes from a British military court and embarks on the battle of his life, armed only with the unflinching resolve to protect his honor. Then another one of these Penguins with the same type of cover is a little better though, is Sharp's Waterloo. If I can open the thing. It's let's see, there's a map, and then another one, and another one. These can be really helpful in these stories, the maps. Find the map, find the map. So let's see, this was originally published in 1990. With the Emperor Napoleon at its head, an enormous French army is marching towards Brussels. The British and their allies are also converging on Brussels in preparation for a grand society ball. It's up to Richard Sharp to convince the Prince of Orange, the inexperienced commander of Wellington's Dutch troops, to act before it's too late. But Sharp's warning cannot stop the tide of battle, and the British suffer heavy losses on the road to Waterloo. Wellington has few reserves of men and ammunition. The Prussian army has not arrived, and the French advance wields tremendous firepower and determination. Victory seems impossible. Bernard Cornwell also wrote a non-fiction book about Waterloo that I will eventually find somewhere. Okay, and then we have Sharp's Devil, Chile, 1820. So Richard Sharp and the Emperor, 1820 to 21. And this was published in 1992. Harper Perennial. As an honored veteran in the Napoleonic War, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Sharp is drawn into a deadly battle both on land and on the high seas. The year is 1820, and Sharp has quietly passed the years as a farmer since the Battle of Waterloo. Suddenly, his peaceful retirement is disturbed when his former sergeant, Patrick Harper, he and his former sergeant, Patrick Harper, are called to the Spanish colony of Chile to find Don Blas Vivar, an old friend who has vanished without a trace, and who just happened to be the Captain General of Chile. Sharp and Harper embark on a dangerous journey that carries them first to the unexpected interview with Napoleon, then on to Chile, a land seething with corruption and revolt. Sharp faces impossible odds, not only against finding Vivar, but against surviving it in a time when tyranny rules and justice abounds, and Napoleon lurks on the horizon. itching to rekindle the world in a blaze of war. And then the last one I have is Sharp's Fury. It's going well. Richard Sharp in the Battle of Barossa, March 1811. Maps. The year is 1811, with the British Army penned into a small part of Portugal and all of Spain fallen to the invader except the coastal city of Cadiz. The French appear to have won the war. Captain Richard Sharp has no business being in Cadiz, but when an attack on a French-held bridge goes disastrously wrong, Sharp, accompanied by Harper, his loyal Irish sergeant, and the obnoxious Brigadier Moon, finds himself in the city under French siege. It is also a town riven by political rivalry. So that's the Sharp books I have. This one I'm a little long, but there's no way around it. It's a big collection. Say I'm missing 2, I'll find them and round out the collection. But I love the books, are fantastic. I love them. Good adventure. And so that's it for Bernard Cornwell's Richard Sharp. Thank you, BookTube.